Rain fell like bullets on the parking garage concrete, each drop echoing through the five-story structure with a rhythm that reminded Nikolai Volkov of gunfire. He hated that his mind went there, to violence, to war, to the 18 years he'd spent building an empire on other people's fear. But some instincts never died, no matter how much legitimate business he layered over the foundation of blood. "Mr. Volkov, the car's ready." His driver, Anton, stood by the black Bentley with an umbrella that cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Traffic should be clear to the office." Nikolai adjusted his cufflinks. Platinum, understated, the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. The meeting with the City Planning Commission had gone exactly as planned. His real estate development would move forward, rezoning approved, palms greased through legal channels that couldn't be traced back to anything inappropriate. This was how power worked now: lawyers instead of enforcers, contracts instead of threats. Most of the time, he was halfway to the Bentley when he saw her. A girl. No, a young woman, though it was hard to tell under the layers of ragged clothing, huddled against a concrete pillar near the stairwell exit. Her shopping cart was packed with plastic bags and cardboard, the architecture of survival. Dark hair hung in wet tangles around a face too thin, too pale, with eyes that tracked his movement like a hunted animal watching predators. Boston's homeless population had exploded in the past 5 years. Nikolai donated to shelters, funded addiction treatment programs, wrote checks that let him feel like he was solving problems from a comfortable distance. But looking at actual poverty was different from funding its solutions. It made him uncomfortable in ways that violence never had. He should have kept walking. Should have let Anton open the car door. Should have slid into leather seats and left this girl to whatever fate had brought her to a parking garage in the middle of a November storm. Instead, he stopped. Something in her eyes held him. Not pleading. He would have walked past pleading. But warning. Fear mixed with urgency. The look of someone who knew something terrible and couldn't decide whether speaking would make it worse. "Sir?" Anton's voice carried a question. They were exposed here, visible, and Anton's job was keeping Nikolai safe, which meant keeping him moving. The girl pushed herself upright, wavering slightly. Malnourished, probably. When was the last time she'd eaten a real meal? Her hand gripped the shopping cart handle with white knuckles, and Nikolai noticed the scar tissue across her palms. Burns, maybe, or repeated injuries that had healed wrong without medical attention. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Check the trunk." The words came out rushed and raw, like she'd been holding them back, and they'd finally broken through her fear. "Please, you need to check the trunk of your car." Nikolai's entire body went cold. Not the cold of fear. He'd trained himself past that response years ago, but the cold of recognition. This girl knew something. Something about his car. Something that made her risk approaching a stranger in an expensive suit. Risk the exposure of speaking when people like her survived by being invisible. "What's in the trunk?" His voice was level, giving nothing away. "I don't know. I didn't look. But I saw them. 2 men, maybe 30 minutes ago. They were working on your car, the black one, and when they saw me watching, they—" She swallowed hard. "One of them pulled a gun. Told me if I said anything to anyone, he'd find me and make sure I disappeared for good. But I can't. If something happens and I didn't warn you." Her voice broke. The moral calculus of the desperate. Risk death by speaking or risk living with blood on your hands by staying silent. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Anton was already moving, phone out, barking orders in Russian to the security team that monitored Nikolai's movements throughout the city. 3 of them would be here within minutes. But minutes could be too long if the girl was telling the truth. "What did these men look like?" Nikolai asked, his mind already cataloging enemies, calculating which of Boston's rival operations would be bold enough to target him in broad daylight. One was tall, bald, with a tattoo on his neck, looked like a snake. The other was shorter, heavy, wearing a Red Sox jacket. They had a black duffel bag. After they closed the trunk, they wiped down the car like they were cleaning off fingerprints. The details spilled out of her with the precision of someone who'd learned to observe carefully because survival depended on noticing threats before they materialized. The description matched soldiers from the Donovan crew, Irish mob, old Boston family that had controlled the docks for 3 generations until Nicolai's organization had absorbed most of their territory 5 years ago. They'd accepted the transition with apparent grace, taking payouts and positions in the new structure. Apparently, not all of them had accepted it. "Anton, don't open that trunk." Nikolai's voice carried command that made his driver freeze mid-step. "In fact, everyone back away from the vehicle. Now." "Sir, if there's a device, then we call the bomb squad. We don't play hero with explosives." Nikolai turned back to the girl who was already edging toward the stairwell, preparing to disappear. "Wait, don't go." She froze, that hunted look returning to her eyes. "I told you what I saw. That was the deal. I warn you, you don't hurt me. That's how this works, right?" "That's not how anything works with me." Nikolai pulled out his wallet, extracted $500 bills. "This is for the warning. For potentially saving my life." She stared at the money like it might bite her. "I don't want your money." "Yes, you do. Everyone wants money. Take it, buy food, get somewhere warm and dry tonight." He held it out, watching her internal war play out across her face. Pride versus survival. Dignity versus hunger. Survival won. It usually did. Her hand shot out and grabbed the bills, stuffing them deep into her coat pocket before anyone else could see. "Thank you," she whispered. "What's your name?" "Why do you need to know?" "Because I want to make sure you're safe. If the Donovan crew thinks you saw them tampering with my car, they'll come looking." Fear flooded her expression, confirming what Nikolai had suspected. She hadn't thought past the immediate moral crisis of warning him, hadn't considered that doing the right thing might paint a target on her back. "Riley," she said finally. "My name is Riley." "Riley." He repeated it, committing it to memory. "How long have you been on the streets?" 8 months. Not that it's any of your business." The defensive edge was back. Good. Meant she still had fight left, hadn't completely surrendered to her circumstances. Sirens approached, police and fire department responding to Anton's call about a potential car bomb in a public garage. Within minutes, the parking level would be swarmed with first responders and investigators. Riley would be questioned, her story picked apart, her identity recorded in systems that might flag her for things Nikolai didn't yet understand. "Come with me," he said, making a decision that his rational mind screamed was foolish. "Right now, before the police arrive and this becomes an official investigation that puts your face in databases and reports." "I'm not going anywhere with you. I don't even know who you are." "My name is Nicolai Volkov. I run real estate development throughout Boston and the surrounding areas. And if you stay here, you'll spend the next 6 hours being interrogated by police who won't believe your story, followed by however long it takes the Donovan crew to track you down and silence the witness who can identify them." The calculation played out across her face again. Risk versus risk. The devil she didn't know versus the devil she'd seen with a gun and murder in their eyes. "If I get in a car with you, where are we going?" "Somewhere safe while we sort out who just tried to kill me and whether they know you saw them." Nikolai gestured toward Anton, who'd already pulled around a second vehicle, an unmarked sedan that Nikolai kept for situations requiring discretion. "I'm not going to hurt you, Riley. I'm going to make sure no one else does either." "Why?" "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. You just saved my life. That creates a debt, and I always pay my debts. The first police cruiser pulled into the garage level, lights flashing, radio crackling with urgent transmissions. Riley's window for escape was closing. She looked at the approaching officers, looked at Nicolai, looked at the shopping cart that contained everything she owned in the world. My things? Anton will secure them. They'll be waiting wherever you end up tonight. Nicolai opened the sedan's rear door. Trust me or don't. But decide now. She climbed into the car. Anton slid behind the wheel, pulling out just as the first officer emerged from his cruiser. They exited the garage through the employee ramp, avoiding the chaos that was about to descend on level 3. In the rearview mirror, Nicolai watched the bomb squad van arrive, its hulking presence confirming that Riley's warning had been legitimate. Someone had planted a device in his trunk, something designed to kill him, probably triggered remotely or set on a timer. If Riley hadn't spoken up, if he'd driven out of that garage and onto the highway, he didn't finish the thought. No percentage in contemplating alternate timelines where he was dead. Where are we going? Riley asked from her position pressed against the far door, as far from Nicolai as the sedan's interior allowed. One of my properties. Secure building, empty apartment, place where you can clean up and eat while I figure out next steps. Nicolai was already on his phone, texting instructions to his security director. Sweep the building. Full detail on the door. No one in or out without clearance. You mean, while you figure out what to do with me? Smart girl. Saw through the polite framing to the underlying reality. That too, he acknowledged. But mostly I mean, while I figure out who just tried to kill me and whether they know your face well enough to track you down. Riley was silent for a long moment, staring out the window at Boston passing by. The rain had intensified, turning the afternoon into premature twilight. The bald one got a good look at me. Stared right at me after he pulled the gun. I think he was trying to decide whether to shoot me there or let the threat be enough. What made him choose the threat? His partner said something about not wanting blood in the garage. Said it would complicate things, draw attention before. She trailed off. Before the device in my trunk did its job. Nicolai finished. His jaw tightened. The Donovans weren't just making a move against him, they were making a statement. Car bombs were theatrical, designed to send messages that went beyond simply eliminating a target. This was about more than business rivalry. This was personal. The sedan pulled into the underground garage of a renovated warehouse building in the Seaport district. Nicolai's company had converted it 3 years ago, luxury condos that sold for obscene prices to tech executives and finance professionals. Unit 1504 remained unsold, held back from market for reasons that had more to do with having a safe house than maximizing profit. Anton cleared the route from garage to private elevator, his hand inside his jacket where Nicolai knew he carried a Glock 19. Former Spetsnaz, Anton had been with Nicolai for 12 years. The loyalty had been purchased initially, but had evolved into something more genuine over time. The man would die for him. Nicolai tried very hard never to require that sacrifice. Riley followed them into the elevator, her eyes tracking every detail. The security camera in the corner, the emergency phone, the floor buttons that required a key card to access. She was cataloging escape routes, Nicolai realized. Still thinking like prey even though she'd made the choice to trust him. He couldn't blame her. Trust was probably what had gotten her onto the streets in the first place. The apartment revealed itself in stages as lights activated on motion sensors. Open floor plan, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Harbor, furniture that looked expensive because it was. The kitchen gleamed with appliances that had never been used. The bedroom door stood open, revealing a king bed with hospital corners on linens that had never been slept on. Riley stood in the center of the living room, dripping rainwater onto hardwood floors, looking so completely out of place that Nikolai felt a strange twist in his chest. When was the last time he'd seen actual poverty in one of his properties? When had he last been forced to confront the gap between his world and the world where people slept in parking garages with shopping carts full of survival? "There's a bathroom through that door," he said, gesturing toward the bedroom. "Towels in the closet, soap and shampoo under the sink. Take your time. I'll have Anton bring food. I'm not taking a shower in a stranger's apartment." "Then sit on the couch and drip on my furniture while we wait for updates from the bomb squad." He shrugged. "Your choice, but you'll be more comfortable clean and dry, and we're going to be here for a while." She looked at the bathroom door, looked at Nikolai. The calculation again. Always calculating. "If you try anything—" "I won't. The door locks from the inside. Take your time. Be as paranoid as you need to be. I understand you have no reason to trust me beyond the fact that I haven't hurt you yet." "People don't usually advertise their intentions before hurting you," she said quietly, the voice of experience. "No, they don't." Nikolai settled into one of the armchairs, deliberately positioning himself away from the bathroom door. "Which is why I'm sitting here, visible, while you have complete privacy in there. I need you functional and thinking clearly, Riley. I need you to remember every detail about those men and what you saw. Fear and trauma make for terrible witnesses. So take a shower. Get warm. Let your nervous system calm down enough that you can help me figure out who tried to kill me." She studied him for another long moment, then grabbed a towel from the closet and disappeared into the bathroom. The lock clicked with finality. Nikolai waited until he heard water running before pulling out his phone. His security director answered on the first ring. "Boss, the bomb squad confirmed an explosive device in the Bentley's trunk. C4, maybe 2 pounds, with a remote detonator and a backup timer set for 45 minutes after the car started moving. If you'd driven out of that garage, I know what would have happened." Nikolai's voice was ice. "What I need to know is who authorized it and how many people are involved. We're pulling footage from every camera in a 3-block radius. The description matches Tommy Donovan, Sean's nephew, and his enforcer Burke. But boss, if this is sanctioned by Sean himself, then I'm going to war with the Irish mob. Start preparations." Nikolai stood, pacing to the windows. The harbor was gray and choppy, boats straining against their moorings. "And find out everything you can about a homeless girl named Riley. I need to know if she's in danger, if the Donovans can identify her. If we need to relocate her somewhere, they'll never find her." "Boss? With respect. Why are we protecting a homeless kid? She did her good deed. You paid her. Why make this complicated?" "Because those men pulled a gun on her. Because she's a witness who can identify them. And because—" Nikolai paused, searching for the logic in a decision that felt more emotional than strategic. "Because she saved my life when she had every reason to stay silent and protect herself. That means something." "Understood. I'll have intel on her within the hour." The call ended. Nikolai stood at the window, watching rain sheet across glass, and tried to understand why this girl's fate mattered to him beyond the tactical considerations of witness protection and debt repayment. Maybe it was because she'd reminded him that courage existed outside his world of calculated violence and strategic brutality. That sometimes people did the right thing simply because it was right, not because it served their interests or protected their territory. That kind of courage deserved protection. The shower shut off. Nikolai heard the bathroom door open, heard Riley's soft footsteps on the bedroom carpet. "There's clothes in the closet," he called out without turning around. "Nothing that will fit properly, but better than what you were wearing. Help yourself to whatever works." Silence. Then, "Why are you doing this?" "Which part?" "All of it. The money, the apartment, the clothes. What do you want from me?" He turned to face her. She stood in the bedroom doorway wearing a towel that was too big, her wet hair darkening to almost black, looking younger and more vulnerable than she had in the parking garage armor of multiple coats and defensive aggression. "I want you to stay alive," Nicolai said simply, "because you did something brave and right, and the world has a bad habit of punishing people for that. Consider this my attempt to break the pattern. I don't believe in charity." "Neither do I. This isn't charity. It's strategy. You're a witness to an attempted murder. You have information I need. And, yes, you're also a human being who deserves basic dignity, but let's not pretend that's my primary motivation. I'm not a good man, Riley. I'm a practical one." The honesty seemed to settle something in her. She nodded once and closed the bedroom door. Nikolai returned to his vigil at the window. The first complex truth of his new reality crystallized. Saving Riley's life was going to complicate his own in ways he couldn't yet predict. But he'd made the choice. Now he'd see it through. That was how Nicolai Volkov operated. Once he committed to protecting something, he protected it absolutely. Even when that something was a homeless girl who'd stumbled into his war without meaning to. Riley emerged from the bedroom wearing sweatpants that puddled around her feet and a t-shirt that hung like a dress. Her hair was still damp, pulled back from a face that looked different, clean, younger. The dirt and grime had aged her, made her look weathered beyond her years. Without it, Nikolai could see she was probably early 20s, with sharp features that suggested Mediterranean or maybe Middle Eastern heritage. "Feel better?" he asked. "Feel weird." She wrapped her arms around herself. "Haven't been this clean in months. Kind of forgot what it felt like." Anton appeared with bags of takeout, Thai food from a restaurant 3 blocks away that Nikolai favored for its privacy and discretion. He set the containers on the dining table and withdrew to his position by the door, becoming background the way good security always did. "Sit. Eat." Nikolai gestured to the spread. "We need to talk, but we'll do it while you're getting actual nutrition." Riley approached the table like it might be a trap, but hunger won over caution. She grabbed a container of pad thai and started eating with the intensity of someone who didn't know when the next meal would come. Nikolai let her eat in silence for a few minutes, watching the way she protected her food with one arm while shoveling it in with the other. Prison behavior. Street behavior. The body language of someone who'd had meals stolen too many times. "How old are you?" he asked finally. 23. "Why?" "Because I'm trying to understand how someone your age ends up on the streets for 8 months without family or friends intervening." She set down her fork, the defensive walls slamming back up. "That's none of your business." "Everything about you is my business now. The men you saw are part of the Donovan organization. Boston Irish mob with roots going back 3 generations. They're violent, connected, and very good at making problems disappear. If they think you can identify them, they'll come for you." "Then I'll disappear first. Been doing it for months. I know how to be invisible." Being invisible in a parking garage is different from being invisible when professional criminals are actively hunting you. Nikolai leaned forward. "I can protect you, Riley. But I need to understand what I'm protecting. Who you are, why you're on the streets, whether there are complications I should know about, outstanding warrants, angry ex-boyfriends, family members who might come looking." She stared at her food, jaw working like she was chewing on more than noodles. "There's no one. That's the whole point. There's no one who would notice if I disappeared." The bleakness in that statement hit harder than Nikolai expected. There must have been someone before the streets. "My foster parents. But that ended when I aged out of the system at 18. She pushed the food around her plate. "They weren't bad people. Just not equipped to keep dealing with a teenager who had issues. When the state stopped paying them to house me, they helped me get into a transitional living program. I lasted 3 months before the funding ran out. And then? Then I worked 3 jobs trying to afford rent in this city, which is impossible on minimum wage. Fell behind. got evicted, slept in my car until it got repossessed. After that, she shrugged. The streets were the only option left. The clinical recitation of catastrophic failure was almost worse than emotion would have been. This was someone who'd stopped expecting sympathy, stopped hoping for rescue, had accepted homelessness as logical endpoint rather than temporary crisis. You said you had issues. What kind? The kind you get from spending your childhood being bounced between homes after your parents died in a car accident. Anxiety, depression, PTSD from some of the placements that went bad before I ended up with the Johnsons. She met his eyes, challenging. Is that disqualifying? Am I too damaged to be worth protecting? No. It means you're a survivor. And survivors are useful. Nicolai pulled out his phone, showing her a photograph. This is Tommy Donovan. Is he the bald man you saw? She studied the image, then nodded. Yeah, that's him. Same tattoo on the neck, looks like a serpent or dragon. Celtic dragon, family symbol. Nicolai swiped to another photo. And this is Michael Burke, Tommy's usual partner. The heavyset one? That's him. The one who said not to leave blood in the garage. Nicolai set down his phone. They're both dead. Riley's fork clattered against the container. What? They were found in Burke's apartment 2 hours ago. Professional hits. Single shots to the back of the head, execution style. Someone cleaned up the crew that planted the bomb in my trunk. The color drained from Riley's face. But that means whoever ordered the hit on me is tying up loose ends. And you, Riley, are a loose end. You saw them. You can place them at the scene. You're a witness who can confirm they were working on my car. But they're dead. Who am I testifying against? Whoever gave them orders. Probably Sean Donovan himself, though proving that will be complicated. Nicolai watched her process the implications. This is bigger than you realize. The device in my trunk wasn't just about killing me. It was about starting a war between my organization and whoever they plan to frame for it. By taking out Tommy and Burke, they're eliminating the trail that leads back to them. So I'm safe? If the men who threatened me are dead, you're safe from them. Not safe from whoever killed them to cover their tracks. Riley pushed away from the table, pacing to the windows. This is insane. I was just trying to do the right thing. I saw something wrong and I spoke up. Why does that make me a target? Because the right thing complicated someone's plan. Welcome to my world. Nicolai stood, moving to stand beside her at the window. But I meant what I said earlier. I protect what's mine. And right now, whether you like it or not, you're under my protection. I'm not yours. I'm not anyone's. Poor phrasing. You're under my protection. Better? She glared at him, but the anger couldn't quite mask the fear underneath. What does that even mean? Am I a prisoner here? You're a guest with armed security. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. A prisoner would be locked in. You're free to leave anytime you want. But if you do, you'll be on your own against people who are very good at making witnesses disappear. He let that sink in. Or you can stay here, safe and fed, while I handle the threat and figure out a longer-term solution. What kind of solution? That depends on what you want. New identity, relocation to another city, enough money to start over somewhere the Donovans don't operate, or... He paused, considering an idea that was forming. Or a job. A job. Her tone was flat with disbelief. Doing what? Working for me. Legitimate work, legal work, but work that keeps you close where I can ensure you're protected. Nicolai turned to face her fully. I run a real estate development company with dozens of properties throughout Boston. I need people I can trust in various positions. You're smart, observant, clearly capable of quick thinking under pressure. Those are valuable traits. I'm a homeless girl with no resume and no references. Who's going to believe I'm qualified for anything? I will. And since I own the company, that's all that matters. He crossed his arms. I'm not offering charity, Riley. I'm offering opportunity. Take it or don't. But decide soon, because my security team needs to know if we're protecting you short-term or integrating you into operations long-term. She stared at him like he'd grown a second head. Why are you doing this? Really? No one is this generous to a stranger. I told you. You saved my life. That creates a debt. Bullshit. You paid me $500. Debt cleared. Nikolai smiled despite himself. You don't get to decide when my debts are cleared. I do. And I say, saving my life is worth more than $500 and a hot meal. So this is guilt? Some kind of rich man's redemption project where you save the poor homeless girl and feel good about yourself? No. This is practical risk management. You're a witness I need alive and cooperative. Keeping you safe serves my interests. He held her gaze. But yes, it's also the right thing to do. I'm capable of that occasionally, when it doesn't conflict with business. The honesty seemed to reach her in a way platitudes wouldn't have. She nodded slowly, chewing her lip while thinking. If I say yes, what happens next? Tonight, you sleep here. Safe, warm, door locked if that makes you feel better. Tomorrow we set you up with proper identification, a bank account, an apartment that isn't connected to me in any obvious way. You start work next week in property management. Basic stuff at first. Learning the business, proving you're reliable. And if the Donovans come looking for me, they won't find you. You'll have security that doesn't look like security. New name if necessary. Complete separation from your previous identity. Nikolai pulled out his phone again, showing her his contacts. This is Detective Sarah Chen, Boston PD. She specializes in witness protection. If you prefer, I can hand you off to official channels and let the state handle your safety. Riley looked at the name on the screen, then back at Nikolai. What's the catch? The catch is you work for me. You're loyal to me. You don't talk to police or reporters or anyone else about what you saw today without my approval. Your safety comes at the price of discretion. So I trade one kind of prison for another. No. You trade homelessness and danger for stability and protection. The discretion is just standard business practice. My employees don't discuss my affairs publicly. That's not prison. That's professionalism. She was quiet for a long time, staring out at the harbor. Lights from boats and buildings reflected on the water, creating patterns that shifted with the waves. Finally, she spoke. Okay, I'll take the job. But I want it in writing. Salary, expectations, my freedom to leave if this doesn't work out. I'm not signing my life away on a handshake. Fair enough. My attorney will draw up a contract tomorrow. Nikolai extended his hand. Welcome to Volkov Industries. She looked at his hand like it was a snake, then shook it briefly. Her grip was stronger than he'd expected, her palm rough with calluses and scar tissue. One more thing, Riley said. What you said about being practical and not good, is that true? Should I be scared of you? Nikolai considered lying, but something about her directness demanded honesty. I've done things that would horrify most people. I've hurt people who threatened what I was building. I've made choices that prioritized power over morality. But I've never hurt anyone who didn't hurt someone else first. Never victimized the vulnerable for profit or pleasure. Never used my power to exploit people who couldn't fight back. So you're a criminal with a code. I'm a businessman who understands that certain problems can't be solved through legal channels. He met her eyes steadily. Does that scare you? Honestly? The scariest people I've met were the ones who smiled while hurting me. The ones who said they loved me while hitting me. The ones who pretended to be good. She wrapped her arms around herself again. You're telling me straight what you are. That's less scary somehow. The confession revealed more than she probably intended. Someone had hurt her badly enough that honesty felt safer than kindness. Who hit you? Nikolai asked quietly. Doesn't matter. He's gone now. Gone where? Prison. He's the reason I ended up in the transitional program in the first place. Court-ordered housing after he was arrested for assault. When the program funding ran out, I didn't have anywhere else to go. She shrugged like it didn't matter, but her shoulders were too tight, her breathing too controlled. Ancient history. Not that ancient if she still flinched when he'd reached out to shake her hand. Not that resolved if the memory made her whole body tense. What was his name? Why do you need to know? Because I like to know about threats, even neutralized ones. And because if he gets out of prison and comes looking for you, I want to be prepared. Marcus Webb. And he's not getting out anytime soon. They gave him 8 years for what he did to me and the 2 other girls they found. Nicolai made a mental note to have Marcus Webb's prison records pulled. 8 years suggested serious violence. Multiple victims meant pattern. If Riley was willing to testify, the abuse must have been severe enough that prosecution was viable, even with the usual reluctance of victims to cooperate. Get some rest, he said finally. Tomorrow starts early and you have a lot to learn. Riley hesitated, then asked, Where are you sleeping? My penthouse is downtown. Anton will take me there once you're secured for the night. So I'm really alone here? Anton will be outside your door all night. 2 more security personnel in the lobby and parking garage. But yes, the apartment itself is yours for the night. He moved toward the door. Bedroom locks from inside. There's food in the kitchen if you get hungry. Phone on the counter if you need anything. Programmed with my number and Anton's. Nikolai? She stopped him with his name, the first time she'd used it. Thank you. I know you say it's strategy and debt payment and all that, but thank you anyway. He nodded once and left before the gratitude could complicate things further. In the hallway, Anton fell into step beside him. The girl seems stable. You think she'll run? No, she's too smart to walk away from protection when professionals might be hunting her. Nikolai pressed the elevator button. But keep someone on the apartment overnight anyway. If she does try to leave, follow at a distance and make sure she's safe. Boss, are we really hiring her? Or is this a cover story until we figure out what to do with her? We're really hiring her. She's sharp, observant, and she saved my life. Those are qualifications enough. The elevator doors opened. Besides, I'm curious to see what she becomes with actual support and opportunity. 8 months on the streets, and she still has enough moral clarity to risk her life warning a stranger about danger. That's rare. Or stupid. Sometimes they're the same thing. Nikolai stepped into the elevator. And sometimes courage looks like stupidity until you're the one being saved by it. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. 3 days passed in a strange suspension of normal life. Riley stayed in the Seaport apartment under Anton's watchful guard, while Nikolai's organization systematically dismantled the threat. Sean Donovan had been arrested on federal racketeering charges, a case that had apparently been building for months, with the car bomb attempt providing the final catalyst for indictment. His nephew Tommy and enforcer Burke, dead. 3 other Donovan lieutenants in custody or missing, presumed fled to Ireland. The Irish mob's power in Boston was collapsing with surgical precision. Too surgical, Riley thought. Too convenient that everything fell apart within 72 hours of someone trying to kill Nicolai Volkov. She wasn't naive enough to believe this was just lucky timing. On the 4th morning, Nicolai arrived with his attorney, a sharp woman named Rachel Morrison, who looked like she billed $800 an hour and was worth every penny. Ms. Riley Harper, Rachel said, laying out documents on the dining table. That's the name we're using for your employment records. Close enough to your real name that you'll respond to it naturally, different enough that casual searches won't immediately connect you. What happened to using my actual name? Your actual name is attached to a homeless services record that lists you as a witness in a parking garage incident that resulted in bomb squad deployment and 2 homicides. Rachel's tone was matter-of-fact. That's searchable information. We're creating a new identity that has work history, references, and documentation that won't flag you as vulnerable. Riley looked at Nicolai. This feels like witness protection. It's better than witness protection. Official programs have limitations and bureaucracy. This way, you're protected by resources that don't appear in any government database. He gestured to the paperwork. But you're right that it changes your legal identity. If that's uncomfortable, it's fine, Riley interrupted. I've been invisible for 8 months. Having a fake name attached to a real job is an upgrade. She signed the papers where Rachel indicated. Employment contract with Volkov Industries, $45,000 a year starting salary, benefits, clear job description in property management. An apartment lease in her new name, first and last month paid, security deposit waived, a bank account with $2,000 deposited to cover initial expenses. It felt like signing away her soul, even though the terms were more generous than anything she'd imagined. One more thing, Rachel said, producing a final document. This is a non-disclosure agreement specific to anything you may have seen or heard regarding Mr. Volkov's business operations. Standard for all employees, but particularly important in your case, given the circumstances of your hiring. Riley read through it carefully. The language was dense with legal terminology, but the core was clear. She agreed not to discuss Nicolai's affairs with law enforcement, media, or any third party without his explicit approval. Violation meant immediate termination and potential legal consequences. This says I can't testify against you even if subpoenaed. It says you'll invoke attorney-client privilege, which is valid since you're now part of my organization's legal consultation chain. Rachel's smile was professional. It protects both of you. You're not compelled to testify, and Mr. Volkov isn't exposed to a witness who might be pressured into cooperation with authorities. So I'm protecting him as much as he's protecting me. Exactly. Mutual benefit. That's how sustainable relationships work. Riley signed it. What choice did she have? Go back to the streets and wait for someone to silence the witness who could connect dead hitmen to a car bomb? Trust the police to protect her with resources they didn't have? At least this way she was choosing her cage. After Rachel left, Nicolai remained, settling into the armchair like he had all the time in the world. Questions? Yeah, what happens now? Now you move into your new apartment, start work on Monday, and begin rebuilding your life. He pulled out a phone, new model, still in the box. This is yours, programmed with essential contacts, including mine. Anton will take you shopping this afternoon for clothes and necessities. Tomorrow, he'll show you the property management office where you'll be working. Riley turned the phone over in her hands. The last phone she'd owned had been a cracked Android she'd sold for cash when rent was due. This was an iPhone, latest generation, worth more than she'd had in her pocket in months. This is too much. It's a work phone. All my employees have them. He stood, moving toward the door. One more thing. Marcus Webb was released from prison yesterday. Riley's blood turned to ice. What? Early release for good behavior. He served 4 years of an 8-year sentence. Nicolai's voice was casual, but his eyes were sharp, watching her reaction. I thought you should know. Where is he? Halfway house in Dorchester. Conditions of parole include no contact with prior victims, mandatory counseling, and electronic monitoring. Nicolai pulled out his phone, showing her a tracking app. I have access to his location data. He hasn't left the halfway house since release. How did you... That's supposed to be confidential. I have resources that make confidential information accessible when necessary. and I considered it necessary to know if a threat to my employee was active. He met her eyes. He won't find you, Riley. Your new identity is solid. But if you see him, if he somehow tracks you down despite precautions, you call me immediately. Understand? She nodded, throat too tight for words. Marcus was out. 4 years for what he'd done to her, to Jessica, to the girl whose name Riley had never learned. 4 years, and now he was free to do it again to someone else. I can make this problem go away permanently, Nicolai said quietly, if you want me to. The offer hung in the air like smoke. Riley understood what he meant. Not legal intervention, not official channels, but the kind of solution that involved people disappearing and questions never being asked. No. The word came out shakier than she intended. I don't want that on my conscience. It wouldn't be on your conscience, it would be on mine, and I've carried worse. I said no. Nicolai nodded, accepting her boundary without argument. Then we monitor him. If he violates parole, he goes back to prison. If he comes near you, we involve law enforcement through official channels. But Riley, if he becomes an immediate threat, I'll handle it my way. Your consent isn't required for me to protect my people. The possessive phrasing should have bothered her. Instead, it felt oddly comforting. Someone claiming her as theirs, as worthy of protection, as mattering enough to fight for. Thank you, she said finally. Don't thank me yet. You haven't started work. You might hate it. I've lived on streets for 8 months. I'm pretty sure I can handle filing paperwork and answering phones. His smile was genuine this time. You're going to do more than that, but we'll start slow and see what you're capable of. The apartment was in Allston, near Boston University. A 1-bedroom in a secure building with a doorman who nodded like he knew exactly who she was and why she merited extra attention. The furniture was basic but comfortable. The kitchen was stocked with actual food. The bathroom had a full tub, towels that felt expensive, products she recognized from stores she'd never been able to afford. It was the nicest place she'd ever lived. Riley stood in the living room and cried. Not sad tears, not scared tears. Just overwhelming emotion that she didn't have words for. The relief of safety. The shock of kindness. The terrifying hope that maybe her life could be something other than survival. Anton waited in the hallway, giving her privacy while staying close enough to intervene if needed. Good security, she was learning, meant being there without being intrusive. She'd expected muscle with guns. Instead, she got quiet professionals who treated her with respect, who called her ma'am, who asked permission before entering her space. It was disorienting. Saturday, Anton took her shopping. Not thrift stores or discount outlets, but actual stores where clothes had price tags that made her dizzy. She tried to be practical, choosing basics, avoiding expense. Mr. Volkov said not to worry about cost, Anton said when she put back a jacket for being too expensive. He wants you properly outfitted for work. This jacket is $300. That's not reasonable for work clothes. With respect, ma'am, you don't know what's reasonable in Mr. Volkov's world yet. Take the jacket. She took the jacket, and pants that fit properly, and shoes that didn't have holes, and a winter coat that would actually keep her warm instead of just adding bulk. By the end of the day, she had a wardrobe that looked professional, felt comfortable, and cost more than she'd made in 2 months of her 3 minimum-wage jobs. Sunday, she explored her neighborhood. Coffee shops and bookstores and restaurants that catered to students and young professionals. People who looked like they had futures, careers, normal problems like student debt, and job stress instead of where to sleep, and how to stay warm. She could pretend to be one of them now. Monday morning, Riley Harper reported for her first day of work at Volkov Industries. The property management office was in Back Bay, 3rd floor of a building Nicolai's company owned. 12 employees, all women except for 2 men, ranging from early 20s to late 50s. They welcomed her with the casual warmth of people who'd been told to make her feel comfortable but hadn't been told why she needed extra consideration. Her supervisor was Linda Chen, 40-something, efficient, with the air of someone who ran things smoothly through competence rather than authority. "You'll start with tenant communications," Linda explained, showing Riley to a desk with a computer and phone. "Answer inquiries, schedule maintenance, handle complaints. Basic stuff until you learn our systems." It was basic stuff. It was also the first legitimate job Riley had held since the minimum wage positions that couldn't cover rent. She threw herself into it with the intensity of someone proving she deserved to be there. By lunch, she'd processed 37 work orders, responded to 15 tenant emails, and figured out the database system through trial and error. Linda noticed. "You're picking this up fast." "I'm motivated." Riley didn't elaborate, didn't explain that failure meant going back to the streets, that this job was life and death even if it looked like routine office work. "Mr. Volkov said you had rough circumstances before he hired you." Linda's tone was carefully neutral. "I don't need details, but I want you to know. Everyone here has some story about how they got this job. Some are escaping bad situations. Some are rebuilding after setbacks. Some are just people who needed a chance and got one. So I'm not special. You're exactly as special as everyone else, which means you're expected to work hard, learn fast, and contribute. No pity, no special treatment beyond the training period." Linda smiled. "But also no judgment. Whatever brought you here, it's in the past. Focus on what comes next." The relief was physical. No questions about her history. No awkward sympathy. Just expectations and opportunities. Riley could work with that. 3 weeks into her new life, Riley had settled into a routine that felt almost normal. Work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, handling tenant issues with increasing competence. Grocery shopping on Saturdays like a person who had a kitchen and money for food. Sundays reading in coffee shops or walking through Boston neighborhoods she'd once navigated looking for safe places to sleep. Marcus Webb's tracking showed him commuting between the halfway house and a restaurant job in South Boston. Never deviating from approved patterns. Never approaching Alston or Back Bay or anywhere Riley spent time. She started to relax. That was her first mistake. The call came on a Tuesday night. Riley's work phone, Nicolai's name on the screen. "Can you come to my office?" "Now?" The urgency in his voice made her stomach drop. "What's wrong?" "Just come. Anton's already on his way to get you." 20 minutes later, she was in Nicolai's downtown office. 30th floor, panoramic views, furniture that screamed power and money. He stood at the windows, tension visible in his shoulders. Marcus Webb violated parole today. He was arrested at a bar in Cambridge, drunk and belligerent, tried to assault a woman who rejected his advances. Nicolai turned to face her. "He's going back to prison." But Riley, when they searched his apartment, they found information about you. The room tilted. "What kind of information?" "Newspaper articles about the parking garage incident, photographs pulled from social media accounts you haven't accessed in months, notes about Volkov Industries and employees who fit your physical description." He pulled up images on his computer, showed her screenshots that made her blood run cold. Marcus had been hunting her. "He doesn't know about Riley Harper. He's still looking for your old identity, but he was getting close." Nicolai's voice was calm, controlled, the way it got when violence was imminent. "The police are charging him with parole violation and stalking. He'll do the remaining 4 years plus additional time for the new charges." "But Riley." "But he knows I'm alive? And in Boston?" She finished his thought. "And even in prison, he could tell people who might come looking." "Exactly. Which is why I'm asking again. Do you want me to handle this permanently?" "No one would connect it to you. No questions, no consequences, just a problem that stops existing." The offer was seductive. Marcus gone, really gone, unable to hunt her from prison or hire people to finish what he'd started. Safety purchased through violence she'd never have to witness. But I can't, Riley whispered. I can't be the person who orders someone's death, even someone like him. That's not who I want to be. Then what do you want? I want to disappear better. New name, maybe? Not just work name, but legal name change? Something he'd never think to search for? She was thinking out loud, grasping for solutions that didn't involve murder. We can do that. Full legal identity change, sealed records, complete separation from your previous life. Nicolai moved closer. But Riley, understand what that means. You're erasing yourself. No going back to old friends, old places, old anything. You become Riley Harper completely, with no connection to who you were before. I didn't have old friends or old places, just old trauma. She met his eyes. If becoming someone new means being safe from him, then that's what I'll do. All right. Rachel will file the paperwork tomorrow. In the meantime, you're moving into a safe house until the identity change is finalized. Where? My building. Penthouse level. 3 floors above my own residence. Better security. Complete isolation from anyone who might be looking. He held up a hand before she could protest. Not negotiable. Marcus was close enough to identify your employer. That means he was close enough to find you. Until he's locked away and the trail goes completely cold, you stay where I know you're protected. The penthouse made her seaport apartment look modest. 3 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, kitchen that looked like something from architectural magazines. And security, cameras, reinforced doors, panic buttons in every room. This is where you live? Riley asked, staring at the view. 3 floors down. This level has been empty since I bought the building. Consider it yours for now. Nicolai moved through the space, checking rooms with professional efficiency. Anton will be posted outside 24/7. There's a secure elevator that requires biometric access. No one gets up here without going through multiple security layers. This is insane. I went from homeless to living in a penthouse in less than a month. This is temporary. Once the identity change is finalized and Marcus is secured in prison, you can move back to your own place. He turned to face her. But Riley, I need you to understand something. You're not just my employee anymore. You're someone I'm actively protecting from a legitimate threat. That changes our relationship. Changes it how? It means I'm invested in your safety beyond professional obligation. It means I'll do whatever necessary to keep you alive, whether you approve of my methods or not. His gray eyes were steady, serious. You can tell me no to permanent solutions. You can set boundaries on what you're comfortable with. But don't mistake my respect for your boundaries as willingness to let you be harmed. If Marcus becomes an immediate threat, I'll eliminate him. Your conscience doesn't get to prevent my protection. The possessive declaration should have scared her. Instead, it felt like being claimed in a way she'd never experienced. Not ownership, but belonging. Being someone's to protect, to fight for, to keep safe at any cost. Okay, she said quietly. Okay? Okay to all of it. The safe house, the new identity, even your protection methods I might not approve of. She wrapped her arms around herself. I'm tired, Nicolai. Tired of running, tired of being scared, tired of surviving instead of living. If you can make Marcus stop being a threat, if you can give me actual safety instead of just temporary shelter, then do it. However you need to. You're giving me permission. I'm giving you authority. There's a difference. She met his eyes. I trust you to make choices I can't make. To do things I couldn't live with doing myself. That's not permission. It's faith that you'll protect me even when it's ugly. Something shifted in his expression. The carefully maintained distance he'd kept between them, the professional boundaries, the insistence that this was strategy and debt payment. All of it cracked, just slightly. Riley. Her name was soft in his mouth. You understand what you're asking me to be? Someone who cares whether I live or die. Someone who will do violence on my behalf without making me complicit. Someone who sees me as worth protecting even when I don't see it myself. She took a breath. Is that what you are? Yes. No hesitation. That's exactly what I am. The space between them felt electric, charged with recognition that their relationship had evolved past employer and employee into something more complicated. Not romance. Nothing so simple. But connection forged through crisis, through trust earned in life and death moments, through the shared understanding that sometimes survival required ruthlessness that good people couldn't access alone. Get some rest, Nicolai said, stepping back before the moment could become something neither was ready for. Tomorrow starts the identity change process. It'll take a few weeks to finalize. Until then, you're here, safe, with nothing to worry about except learning your new life. He left before she could respond. The door closed with the solid thunk of expensive engineering. Riley stood alone in a penthouse that cost more than she'd make in a decade, looking out at Boston spread beneath her like conquered territory. She'd gone from homelessness to this in 30 days, from being invisible to being protected by one of Boston's most dangerous men, from barely surviving to having her biggest threat neutralized by people she'd never have to see again. It was dizzying. It was terrifying. It was the best thing that had ever happened to her. 6 weeks later, Marcus Webb was found dead in his prison cell. Official cause: suicide by hanging. No evidence of foul play. Case closed. Riley read the news with hands that didn't shake. She felt relief, not guilt. Peace, not horror. Nicolai had kept his promise. The threat was gone, permanently, in a way that couldn't be traced back to anyone's orders or actions. She should have felt guilty, should have agonized over being complicit in a man's death, even a man who'd terrorized her. Instead, she felt free. That evening, she went to Nicolai's office unannounced. He looked up from paperwork, unsurprised to see her. You heard? I heard. She closed the door behind her. Did you? Don't ask questions you don't want answered. His voice was gentle. You gave me authority to protect you. I used it. That's all you need to know. Thank you. The words felt inadequate but true. You're welcome. And Riley? He stood, moving around the desk. You're officially Riley Harper now. Legal name change finalized this morning. Your old identity is sealed. As far as anyone knows, that person never existed. She'd been reborn, given a second chance at life by a man who dealt in violence but offered her safety. It should have felt wrong. It felt like grace. I don't know how to repay you, she said quietly. Be loyal. Work hard. Build the life you deserve. He smiled faintly. And maybe someday, when someone else needs help, you'll be the one who sees them, the one who speaks up, the one who refuses to let them face danger alone. She understood then. This wasn't about her repaying a debt. This was about creating a chain of protection, each person who'd been saved becoming someone who saved others. I will, Riley promised. When someone needs help, I'll be there. Just like I was for you in that parking garage. That's all I ask. Epilogue 1 year later, Riley Harper, nay someone else, a person who no longer existed, stood in a parking garage watching a young woman huddle against a pillar, shopping cart full of survival beside her. Riley recognized the posture, the hypervigilance, the calculation of every person who passed, assessing threat levels, planning escape routes. She recognized it because she'd lived it. The young woman's eyes tracked Riley's approach with animal wariness. Riley stopped several feet away, non-threatening, hands visible. I know what you're thinking, Riley said softly. You're thinking no one sees you, no one cares, no one will help. The woman's jaw tightened, but she didn't speak. You're wrong. Someone sees you, someone cares, and I'm here to help. Riley pulled out a business card. Volkov Industries, her name and title printed in clean sans serif. My name is Riley Harper. I work for someone who believes in second chances. If you need a job, a place to stay, a way out of whatever brought you here, call this number. I promise someone will answer. She set the card on a dry patch of concrete where the woman could reach it without getting closer, then stepped back. I was where you are a year ago. Homeless, scared, certain I'd die on these streets. Someone helped me. Now I'm helping you. That's how this works. We save each other. Riley turned to walk away, to give the woman space to decide without pressure. Wait. The voice was hoarse from disuse. Why? What do you want? Riley looked back. Nothing. Except for you to be safe, that's all. Be safe, be well, and someday, when you're strong enough, help someone else. She left the card and walked away, Anton falling into step beside her. They'd been cruising the city's parking structures for weeks, looking for people who needed help, offering opportunities that came with no strings except loyalty and discretion. Nicolai's idea. Building a network of people who'd been saved and now saved others. Creating safety through connection rather than isolation. Think she'll call? Anton asked. I hope so. But if she doesn't, we'll find someone else who will. Riley smiled. That's the deal, right? We keep looking until we find the ones brave enough to ask for help. Her phone buzzed. Nicolai's name on the screen. Dinner tonight? My place. I want to hear about your recruiting efforts. It's not recruiting, it's saving people. Same thing in my world. See you at 7? I'll be there. Riley pocketed her phone and looked up at Boston's skyline, the city that had nearly killed her, then saved her, then taught her to save others. She'd been homeless and helpless, invisible and certain she'd die unknown and unmourned. Now she was someone who saw the invisible people, who stopped to help, who built networks of safety for the vulnerable. All because she'd warned a Mafia boss to check his trunk, and he'd been the kind of man who rewarded courage instead of ignoring it. The chain of protection continued. One saved person becoming a savior. One warning becoming a lifetime of warnings, offered to those who needed them most. And Riley Harper, reborn, renamed, remade, was exactly where she was meant to be. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.